Welcome everyone to another Swisspreneur monthly briefing. It's crazy, already 4 weeks passed since the last month that we have been sitting or standing here together. In that sense, a very well welcome back to Laurent, co-founder and co-CEO at Holy Code, and Sophie, joining us here as managing partner at Vitamin C. Sophie, Laurent, great to have you again. Thank you for taking the time.
Great to be here.
Well, we gotta jump right in. You already know the format by now. We want to dive behind and take a look behind the headlines of the developments of the Swiss startup ecosystem. And Laurent, if you look back to the past week overall, what was your highlight? Anything that stuck out that made you very happy about what happened over the past 4 weeks?
From Switzerland or general?
Ideally Switzerland, but we're open to the starting question.
Okay. I think it was this month. I'm not sure, but there was a study or a test from ETH and Universität Basel together, where they were able to reverse the magnetic field by using lasers. Sorry, this is a bit geeky, but it has extreme applications in making computers and internet communication much faster. So if this proves to be working, would be an amazing technology coming out of Switzerland. So yeah, that was my geeky highlight answer to you then.
Even coming out of your hometown, basically. Even better.
Absolutely. I also love, by the way, that Swisspreneur colors here in the beginning were like blue and red, like FC Basel. So,
of course,
you're doing me all the favors.
We did that especially just for you, Laurent. Sophie, before we get into the headlines of the past 4 weeks of this month, what surprised you during the past 4 weeks? It's crazy because every time we meet here, the world is different 4 weeks later and so much stuff happens. What surprised you this time?
I guess that's not a Swiss specifically topic, right? But I'm here very exposed to everything that's going on around AI, right? Like everyone I'm interacting with is basically working for an AI company or is investing in AI. So of course that's kind of still I don't know. Even though we're doing this the third time now, I think it's still kind of one of the main topics we bring out. But I think last month the one thing that really kind of I was like, oh my God, this is happening, was that the guy who developed OpenClaw now joined OpenAI. I think that was a big one, right? Like that was a European tool, open source, like developed by one person, kind of with a hacker mindset. And then, joining a big US corporation at this point, and kind of a loss for Europe, but also we can develop things in Europe that have massive impact for the entire world. Just a bummer, I think, that he left. But
it was actually a tweet that he put out, right? He said that while it was great building that from Europe, he sort of lacked the mindset to go big and to see the encouragement that he was actually experiencing in the US. So that was probably, besides all the money and the potential with OpenAI, one of the key aspects that he said, look, in Europe, you get hit on the head if you try to think too big, but in the US, you actually get encouraged to do that and to chase the big vision. I found that a bit sad, but also understandable at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what we discussed last month, right? It's this mindset, it's this potential. And I mean, realistically, I understand, right? And there is also no company in Europe that could have made him the same offer, right? And
exactly.
Not even
I mean,
close.
That's a reality. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, because he also said in a different interview that it was between Meta and OpenAI, and he's been there, he's built a big company, he's done all of that. He doesn't need to do that. But what triggers him is he's never been part of such an AI first or AI centric company in that size like OpenAI, or to a second degree Meta. And as you said, Sophie, there's nothing comparable in Europe. That's our problem. So as long as they're all going to the United States, we don't have them.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's really crazy. And the crazy part is also he already made so much money with his PDF company before. So while, of course, the money still probably has an effect on such a deal, it's not the main driver. It's the potential and the impact that he can have and the learning curve for him on a personal level, that was probably the defining part.
Yeah, and what he can build and be part of, right? And that scale.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then also at the same time, right, we had this like crazy reminder also of the danger of AI, right? With this whole conversation around Anthropic and the DoD and privacy and how much human do we involve in killing or not. And so that I think was also hopefully for a lot of people a wake-up call in where this is heading. So yeah.
Do you think it is? I mean, I'm taking a negative approach here now, but
yeah,
do you think it really is a wake up call? You know, like then people saying, "Oh, now I'm canceling my OpenAI subscription, my ChatGPT subscription because of the deal that they now made with the military, etc." But you know, I think it's just going to be a dip that if you look at the chart a year from now, nobody's even going to see it anymore. So I don't think I'm a bit pessimistic here, but I think people quickly woke up to the reality like, oh shit, we will have AI killing people in the future. We don't want this. I'll cancel the subscription. And a week later, probably it's like, oh shit,
you move on.
I cannot change this PDF the way I want. Oh, let's renew my subscription, you know? So honestly, I don't think that it will have a big impact, even though I wish it would, but I think this is unstoppable.
But there I also feel a bit that people sometimes or very often have a bit of a double morale, I feel. Because then they say, oh, I will cancel my subscription because of this. But then for other things that are also from a moral or ethical perspective, not very good, they don't care about that because it's not that publicly discussed, for example. So there I also feel sometimes you're a bit short to jump to conclusions, you know, as consumers to make a statement, which is great, but we're not fully like from the beginning to the end with our actions in a consistent way that we would make the full walk the talk. It's easy to cancel a ChatGPT subscription.
Yeah, and it's also always a trade-off with convenience, right? Like I see that for myself, right? I don't actually want to buy all my books on Amazon, right? But I end up doing it often, right? Because it's the easiest move, right? And instead of walking to the library or something like that, right? So, and it's that. And I think that's the same problem with using ChatGPT or another tool. I still haven't canceled the subscription. I said I will, but I'm still running it. So
I canceled it, but I think I will have to bring it back because I'm doing everything with Claude Code now, which is fine. With Claude and with Claude Code, which is fine. But there are just some tasks that, in my opinion, OpenAI is doing better. So I need to probably have both again in the future. But as you said, Silvan, in the beginning, it's been 4 crazy weeks. The world is changing so fast that I think this is news from yesterday very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. We also started a new war, right? That's another thing that happens almost on a monthly basis now. I'm realizing every time we're talking.
I heard it's over already, apparently. It's won.
Well, let's see where this is headed. But it's a crazy time to be alive, for sure, because so much stuff is happening in just a few weeks. It's crazy. As always, we have 3 topics to discuss together. The first one is, despite all the AI hype and AI craziness, we do see big rounds in Switzerland, but mainly across medtech, biosensing, and crypto. So in March, we have seen 3 pretty strong rounds that were raised. We have Polaris Medical, they raised 50 million to advance its cardiac devices. Crypto company STS Digital raised 30 million, and Exensio secured 6 to 7 million euros for wearable biosensors that actually measure proteins and hormones in real time. So very different companies, Laurent, but they all sort of managed to raise meaningful capital in the same month. Is that a sign of a healthier funding environment in Switzerland, that this upward trend that we discussed last month from the 2025 numbers is continuing, or is it still rather the exception than a broader trend?
The entrepreneur in me that wants to see everything optimistic is saying, yes, obviously, this is an uptick. We're going in the right direction. The more rational manager in me that just looks at KPI says, man, it's just 1 month. Let's take it slow. It's not a huge change to what it was before. But I do think overall that I see a bit more positivity. I see a bit more willingness to invest. So also, as we discussed the last time, the numbers are also supporting that. But it's it's just not enough yet. I want us to think 10 times bigger at least. So the question is still, the unanswered question is, how do we sit here in 2 or 3 months and say, wow, look at that, we had 30 rounds in that area instead of 3 rounds? I don't see that happening in the next 3 months, but we need to collectively find a way that Switzerland will be capable of doing that in the next 2 years.
Or 500 million rounds instead of 50 million rounds, right? Something
Also
like
good.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. You take both, whatever comes first. And Sophie, if you look also at these different companies, they seem to play and to operate in areas where Switzerland has very strong scientific, but also technical depth in our country, thanks to EPFL, ETH, etc. Does that also help to explain where the investor conviction is the strongest right now, that they really focus on the technology, the deep tech that is really backed by the strong universities and education that we have in our country?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's where Switzerland has a real edge, right? That we have this like scientific depth and defensible IP, and specifically medtech, robotics, biotech. I think we have a clear edge. I know one of the companies really well. Exensio is a portfolio company of my first fund, Dart Ventures, and there also I think we see a very clear trend around, health data and AI and how that will improve and help us personalize things, continuous monitoring. So we always had this investment thesis, but you need actual hardware to generate this new type of data. So new types of sensors, new types of wearables. So I think there Switzerland can play a really big role. What I find a bummer looking at these rounds, it's a little bit what Laurent was just hinting to, right? Like, yes, Polaris Series C, there's no Swiss investors. These are US investors leading this round. Also with Exensio, the lead is the VI Harper Group. It's a San Francisco-based big medtech fund. There's Swiss participants still because it's a Series A, but after that it's usually empty with Swiss investors, right? So that's a bummer. What is interesting also about the Exensio case, I think, is VI Harper now, I know it because it's a portfolio company. This comes in together in a partnership with a company called Texas Instrument that helps manufacture medical devices. And I think that's a really interesting, and that's probably a way a lot of startups have to think, is like, okay, who is actually my partner that helps me manufacture? I think Switzerland has a lot of potential in inventing and developing, but really manufacturing and scaling, there is still a gap. So a lot need to think of also partnerships that are international to get to that next level, and not just build the IP and then sell it, but no, actually, like, how do we manufacture at scale and distribute the tech? So we'll see how they're going. Yeah.
I love that take, because I feel in Switzerland we would have the same potential. We have a lot of also very multinational companies operating at least partially out of Switzerland, maybe some for mainly tax reasons, but some really with actual production capabilities and stuff like that. So there I feel we also have a probably pretty underused potential where startups can collaborate with these bigger players to sort the production, then maybe scale into additional markets.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we should produce our own stuff, scale it, and we should invest in it, right? It feels like we're currently a little bit stuck in the, hey, we're inventing, developing, but then scale happens somewhere else. That's an unutilized potential in terms of the manufacturing as well as the investing. Yeah.
From an outside perspective, you would just say it's not that smart, because you make all this upfront investment, but someone else reaps the fruit that you basically planted there. But at the same time, from a founder's perspective, it's probably better to find the money somewhere compared to not finding it at all. And from an ecosystem perspective, it would be even better if they didn't just find the money, but actually found Swiss money to grow and to scale the company.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's also important to mention, it would be good that we have Swiss money in it, but I think you need to go to the US for most of those products, because that's the market you're going to make a lot of your revenue, and you're going to create a lot of your growth. So you will anyway need American investors that open the doors, that make it possible for you to go and do that. So I think it would be amazing to have more Swiss late stage rounds, but I think it should not be the goal to not have American or UK or whatever investors investing there as well, right? It should be a bit of both. That would be the ideal setup, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, if you don't have any American or UK investors, then you probably don't build a big company at all.
Yeah, because you're going to miss out on those markets.
Yeah, and for Xensio in this case, because I know it well, it was even a clinic in the US, the Mayo Clinic, that helped them co-develop their first product, which is something that is unheard of in Switzerland, right? That the clinic, a hospital, would actually develop a product with a startup all the way to bring it to market, and including an investment, including all of that, right? So even in the early stage, it was the pull from the US for them also to take it to the next level.
I think there's a good second example as well. Michael Jackson, the most famous LinkedIn VC. He wrote. I don't remember when it was, but probably in the last 4 weeks, he wrote that there was a startup that raised 10 millions from the American defense sector. Basically, sorry, not raised. They got a contract of 10 millions, and on that they can just go to market and raise 100 millions in VC capital, because obviously they've proven they will find a buyer over there, right? This is never happening in Europe. The last place that you will get money from or revenue from is going to be the military or the government in general, right? They're going to be your last buyer. And I think that's exactly one of the things that you said, Sophie. It's the wrong way around. We need those kinds of organizations to be the early buyers of such startups, to actually help them afterwards go and get the VC money to make it happen. So I think across the board, everywhere, we just need to be more aggressive or more open-minded in terms of buying from startups. We're too late usually.
I feel the US market is different there, because due to the sheer size of the market, you have so much more competition. We touched up on that topic a bit last time, but that sort of forces you to make those bets and invest into startup collaborations, maybe buy a product that has huge potential, but is not fully developed or fully there yet, because then you gain a competitive edge over your competition. And I feel that's a different mindset in the US that actually makes that happen, compared to when you have little or almost no competition. You're also very content. Why should you risk anything to maybe lose money or lose part of your reputation with a startup collaboration? Because you don't have to move. You're pretty much safe where you are.
Yeah, and it comes down to the failure culture as well, right? Where you just, in Switzerland, it's still not the greatest thing that you make a mistake or that you fail on something. I can give you one example. I don't remember which one it was. It was either Universitätsspital Basel or it was the University Hospital of Bern. One of them is implementing a new software for their clinical patients. And I don't know the exact numbers. I just read that somewhere. I think it's 100 million to get the software installed and up and running, and then a couple of dozen millions per year in license costs. And obviously, it's an American company, right? And then they ask specifically, "Hey, you're a public company in Switzerland. Why are you not choosing a Swiss or at least a European solution?" And they said, "Yeah, because none of them are as good as the American one." Right. And then it always comes down to how high do you prioritize taking the best solution over something that is maybe more local and more specific to your market. And yeah, I think currently, as a Swiss company in general, we tend to go for the best possible solution in the market, and that unfortunately tends to be oftentimes coming from a bigger market in Switzerland itself.
And lower risk, like Silvan was saying, and I agree, it has also to do with the competition, right? It's like, and also the explanation that a lot of things are in the US are private. Let's think about clinics and hospitals, right? The Mayo Clinic is a fancy private clinic. So of course they need to have an edge to get patients to come to them. So they have an incentive developing the newest technologies with startups or bringing that in. They even have their own venture fund. They even have their own accelerators. Like I don't see that happening quickly in a place like Switzerland. But there's also a downside, right? Like here we have like actually really good public healthcare infrastructure, right? So it doesn't need to be as competitive, right? So it has both sides.
You can't have it all at the same time. You have to choose where you want to excel at and what you're willing to make compromises on. Just to wrap up this topic, my uncle, he lives in the US for many, many years already. And he once told me something that what you just both said just reminded me of. He said Switzerland is the world's best second place country. So we're very good at delivering very good, very nice quality work. We stick to our words, but we're not willing to take the risks. And that's sort of the difference between a very good number two and probably the number one, that if you take the risks, you will mess up many, many times and things will go wrong. But if you do that at scale, you probably find the stuff that the number two who plays it safely does not get to, basically.
You know what that makes me wonder now, because it did for myself. How many people that are listening to this now think, yeah, but that's perfectly fine, being a very good number two. What are you complaining about?
Yeah,
right.
Fair.
So
yeah.
I think that's, and my assumption is the majority of people will think that, because it is, right? And that's just the mentality that we have. We're probably as a culture, we're more content with where we are, and we're not as aggressive as we need to be in order to be further ahead.
And you should be content, because life in Switzerland is extremely good, right?
Of course.
And I think that's part of it, right? There isn't this like hunger, or there isn't that need for change, right? That urgency.
But the sad conclusion,
I get it.
The sad conclusion would then be, if you want to go big and you want to be number one, you have to leave Switzerland.
Or
we're
you
not
going to
put that on record.
No, or you have to somehow bring in that urgency or that hunger or the ambition to change things. And I think you can do that by exposing yourself to the rest of the world, right? Like I see that happening with Swiss founders or European founders nonstop, right? If they spend enough time here, I don't think they have to move here or completely leave Switzerland, but get the spirit, get the mindset, get the dose of it that helps them to take that along.
Or
and being really passionate about a problem they're trying to solve, right? And I mean, we still do have problems in the world. It's not like everything is figured out at all, right? Even from Switzerland, you can see them, I think.
For sure.
Venture Lab is doing these, like these, let's call it excursions with very good founders to the Silicon Valley for a couple of weeks. I think there's also others. Maybe Sylvan, that's the next thing Swisspreneur has to do. You need to create a program where founders go to the valley for 3 months and get the infusion of the more aggressive long-term thinking, and then we bring it back. So maybe that's the next step.
We've actually been talking about that with another partner, about doing something similar to that. But first, we would probably start a bit closer with the European ecosystems. But then, of course, you would go to the US, maybe to Israel, maybe to China, or even Japan. I don't know. But that's for sure a bit of a dream project for us at Swisspreneur that we have had on our backlog list for a long time, where we said, oh man, this would be so cool to do something there. One day, maybe.
What could be cool? To also then follow these entrepreneurs as they're changing or as they're like making their plans. Yeah. And I think what you, Laurent, just said, I think the 1 or 2 week trip, that's nice, right? But when real change happens, I think if you start like living here and embedding yourself, so it actually takes a few months.
That's fair.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Great. I love it how we already like sort of dive deep into a topic that we did not even have on the agenda because of the discussion just going there. So the second topic I actually want to talk to you about is there was the ETH Zurich's report that came up. They published their 2025 Ventures report. There is a new record. 46 new companies were founded. 24 of them are spin-offs. 22 are the new ETH startup label. They also have a total of 540 million Swiss francs that got invested. It's almost 30% more compared to the previous year. And we just released an episode today, actually, with the people behind it. They actually created clearer business creation regulations and also brand new opportunity accelerator. So stuff is really moving in the right direction, I would say, at ETH. So as an early stage impact investor, Sophie, how significant is this record pipeline, but also the new program and the new regulations for the startups that are in the making for the next 3, 5, or even 10 years?
I mean, it's fantastic, right? Like we said earlier, like I don't think Switzerland has an IP or talent problem at all, right? Like there's so much good stuff being developed in Switzerland. It's the scale up that's where we need to work on. But I agree. I also have the sense now that specifically ETH is like figuring out more and more of the entrepreneurial part. I just had a startup pitch to me here in San Francisco. Actually, it's this ETH spinoff, not yet founded, but already talking to US VCs. And they have now a very easy conversation with ETH on their like IP rights. They basically got out to basically just take the company and have a very light agreement with ETH. It's the first time I'm seeing this. So it feels like also there things are moving in the right direction to make it more entrepreneurial as well as more investor friendly, like to really help them scale. So I was positively surprised. I don't know if it's directly linked to what's happening, but it seemed like, yeah.
That's cool. The
but big shout out to ETH, because I think they're really walking the talk. Like the last 2 years, they've been saying that there will be changes, that they will be focusing more and making it easier for spin-offs and for startups coming out of ETH. And from everything that we're seeing in the market at the moment, I fully agree that they are doing it. They're taking big steps forward. So yeah, they're becoming a massive spin-off player in Switzerland. So yeah, big shout out to them.
It's great for everyone involved in the end, right? It's great for ETH, it's great for the startups, and it's great for society. If you have more technology being commercialized and creating value in the world, it's like a triple win, if not even more.
And it's truly on the radar of investors here now, right? Which I don't think was the case 5 years ago or longer. Now everybody knows about ETH, right? And that has really changed. And
absolutely,
due to their successes and to their work,
more foreign investors like Americans, or the Spotify founder was at ETH Zurich a few weeks ago just to check out the startups on the ground. So ETH Zurich really did very well and put themselves on the map in that sense.
Yeah. No, I talked to 2 pre-seed investors here. The one is called Boost VC. They already did an event at ETH last year, and they're like, let's do another one. It was so great. Let's do events in Switzerland like once a quarter. I'm like, okay. So it seems to be happening also because it's so competitive here, right? So a lot of funds actually struggle to get into like interesting deals. So they're thinking now, oh yeah, like ETH could be a good place for us to really source. So why not put going there more regularly? Makes a lot of sense.
And at the same time, I imagine, especially from a US VC perspective, you probably have more attractive valuations, let's put it that way, to invest in, right? It's probably significantly lower than what you're used to from the American market.
Yes, valuations are lower. You're going to probably win because everybody wants a US VC on the cap table. So it's actually extremely easy for them. Yeah.
I love that.
No, it's good. It's good.
Laurent, how do you see that from the founder perspective? I mean, you work daily with founders, with scale-ups, of course, also SMEs and corporates, but the scale-ups and the startups, how do they perceive the American VCs? Is there more movement, more interest in the Swiss ecosystem?
I think that's always been there, right? For the majority of founders that I talk to, that's like the knighthood moment when they get an American VC to invest into their company, right? So that's always sort of been the dream for them. And it's also been for me in the past. So I don't think much changed there in that sense. Maybe some have become a bit more critical about it. I've had a couple of talks with founders that have, they maybe came out of YC or they had American investors after that, that are, actively telling me if there is a European alternative, I'd gladly choose it. And I'd even be willing to pay a little bit more for it, not as an investor, but as a software tool or whatever it is. So I've had a couple of those conversations that I've never heard before. So there is definitely some change in that regard. But I think in terms of getting investments, I think American VCs is still what everybody wants. All the founders are looking for it. So it's great to see that they're getting more interested in ETH and maybe EPFL, and therefore Switzerland gets more on the map.
But I'm glad to hear that they're getting also founders are more critical also. I think that's really, really good to hear. Like, I don't know, you mentioned Y Combinator, right? That's not the right funding mechanism, accelerator type of equity that they're taking for any type of company. So I'm glad to hear that maybe some people are like, why Combinator? Well, not really. Why should I give them 7% of my company, right? So So it's good to hear. Yeah,
it's still a big thing. And I heard this is a tangent, but maybe we can pick this up in a different episode once. But one of them told me, I'm not sure whether it was Y Combinator, and I don't want to spread wrong words, but one of them told me that they're being advised to hire themselves through employer of records such as deal.com or remote.com instead of being hired directly in the company. And to me, that was like, I was mind blown. Like, what kind of reasoning is behind that even your founders of the company, the most important employees, are not hired in the company itself anymore? To me, that made absolutely zero sense. I haven't been able to verify it yet, but apparently that seems to be a new thing in the States.
So it's
Sophie,
just
ever heard
much
of that?
easier to switch it out. Yeah, I mean, and having the complete flexibility to hire wherever people are, and even less of a commitment to the people,
Yeah, that's exactly what my first thinking was. Like, guys, this is not for you as founders. The reason you're being pushed to do that is so that you're being replaced as easily as possible if you don't hit the right strings, right? So that was my thinking, but I cannot prove that. But yeah, so I would be really careful with going after that hype, because I think it's just going to make you more of a number in the company instead of being really crucial to the success of it.
Yeah, you become part of a sports team where you're sent to the farm team, or your contract will be canceled from today to tomorrow if you don't deliver. Sounds like a lot of pressure.
But that's the reality. I mean, let's be honest, right? That's a reality for a lot of top tier VCs and funders, right? Like the team gets swapped out if it doesn't hit milestones. That's how it is.
That's absolutely fair. But
and
you have
you
probably
know
less
that
leeway now, huh?
Yeah, but you should know when you go into a contract with such a VC that this might happen, right?
Yeah. So this is just going to make it more blatantly clear that be careful. Like, if you go that down road, then it's really, you hit your numbers or you're out. That's the signal that they're sending.
But maybe it's not a bad thing then after all, because it's even more explicit now than ever before that this is the case. So you better be aware.
I think there's a lot of tax implications that people are not properly looking at it in that setup. That I'm not a lawyer. I'm sitting in a law office right now doing this podcast. Shout out to Walter Wies. But I don't know exactly what he means, but we had a talk today about that sort of topics, and there's a lot of things, especially if you're a Swiss founder, that you need to look at in that setup. So it's not an easy choice. I would really be careful.
But would that also mean that you not only just get your salary through that like third party, but also your shares and everything will be tied to that as well? Because that would be extremely dangerous then.
No, I think it's you hold the shares still directly, but I don't know how these agreements look like exactly, and I don't know what the tax implications, whether that is then being treated the same way by the tax office here in Switzerland or not. I just heard today in one of the presentations that we had that you need to be super careful with this. So I think we should actually research that and maybe bring it up as a topic in one of the future episodes.
And it's also a variety depending on the provider you're using, like how they're treating their like pension and 401k, and those things can vary a lot. So yes, it needs deeper research on every time you're doing something like this. Yeah,
for sure.
Great. And these are also hyped companies now. Deal. I see their posters all over the city in San Francisco right now. I think it's Sequoia backed, or I don't know who backed it.
It's crazy. Well, before we dive into the third topic we have today, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Startup Days are coming back to Bern on May 21st. It's the place to be for any deep tech founder or Swiss ecosystem player. Make sure to buy your tickets. They're already out now at startupdays.ch. We will be there with a live session. We'll be interviewing Phil and Lars from Yokoi about actually raising a bigger round. So we hope we can contribute a bit to the problem and solving that with these guys. And hopefully looking forward to seeing many of you there and play some basketball. Will it be, right, Laurent? Again.
Usually, yeah.
Usually, perfect. I can't wait to catch up on that. Wonderful. Let's go to the third topic, robotics and overall industrial tech. We already talked a bit about how important the physical AI part is. So we have a startup, Querero. They raised 5 million to expand their industrial solution. and also the Swiss investor Kick Fund, which I think is a really, really cool concept to check out in more detail. They also reached a milestone. They crossed 100 portfolio companies. So Laurent, if you look at robotics and the industrial automation that is sort of maybe not even back on the radar, but even stronger on the radar than already before, Switzerland has the engineering talent, the industrial base. So why do you still see relatively few robotics companies really break out that scale? I mean, we have Anybotics, etc. They are able to raise big rounds, etc. But often the commercial part of really also scaling up the business revenue-wise is still taking maybe longer than many would expect after seeing these big investments. Why do you think that that is the case?
I actually talked to two robotics companies about that, and one of the things they said is, look, guys, this just takes more time. This is not and I think we talked about a lot of aspects, but in the end, that's what it boiled down to, right? It takes a lot more time to build the machine-based products. It takes more time to get it to the market, to not just be nice to look at and do a proof of concept that then fails, but to actually be usable in the field in a way that you collect relevant data that can help you to improve the product afterwards again. And both of those founders that I talked to said, look, we will see massive investments in some of these robotic companies in Switzerland in the next 2-3 years as they are starting to really go into the market and scale it properly. So they were super convinced about that. And they also said that both of them know of founders, deep tech founders, that moved to Switzerland in the last couple of months, having no connection to Switzerland before that. They weren't born here. They don't have parents from here, or they don't have studied at ETH or whatever. But they moved here specifically because they know that around EPFL and ETH, there's a lot of really good talent coming out of that. So I do think we are building a proper robotics deep tech cluster here in Switzerland. And it's one of the pockets that I'm actually very confident about going forward, that if we don't mess it up and we can attract enough money, here we can be number one at some point in the future. I'm not saying we are now, but we can be, as Switzerland, we can be number one in that field if we play it right and if we play it more aggressive. It's probably the part that I'm most bullish about. So yeah, all in.
I love that thesis. Amazing. Sophie, anything you want to add there before I ask you the next question?
No, absolutely agree with Laurent. Absolutely agree with Laurent. Yeah.
It's too easy to agree on such a positive outlook. So focusing on Kick Fund, Sophie, from an investor perspective, I think it's amazing to see 100 portfolio companies, and also this deep tech focus that they have to a certain degree. So to what extent does what they do help now also shape what actually gets built on a startup or founder perspective?
Yeah, so Kick Fund is great, right? It's because it's directly linked to Venture Kick, right? So Venture Kick is in most early stage deep tech startup university spin-offs we look at from Switzerland, Kick Fund is in there, right? So it's the first $20,000 check, then I think $50,000, and then $150,000. So often when they reach the 150, they get into that kind of early VC conversations before it's like angel rounds. So it's really the first check a lot of these startups get from someone who is not a grant, right? So it's somewhere between the grant and the first funding. And then now through the Kick Fund, they added an additional layer to it where they can get, I think up to another 1.5 million. Just as when they're reaching the third stage, and this is massive because before they got stuck at the 150K. Now they can, once they reach the third stage, they can potentially have a first round through that. And so this is great. I don't consider it as a classical VC fund. It's really still somewhere in between, like accelerator, support, grant, and with the fund attached. But it's great that Switzerland has that. 100 companies. Yeah. I mean, they also have a different process, right? It's like they have a jury, things can go really fast, right? You have one pitch and then you're deciding if you're at the next stage. But I think from the Swiss companies we invested in, 2/3 or so went through Venture Kick and probably half of them through even Kick Fund. So yeah, they cover a lot, which is great. They kind of help, like, they water the roots, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they've done that for so long already. I don't know.
Yeah.
I even stopped counting the years, but the work they do is really, really important. And at the same time, I also feel that with their model, they have a pretty good hit rate. I don't have the exact numbers. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but just the gut feeling of looking at the startups that they worked with, I feel they're really good at selecting the very promising ones that then often also outperform in the long run to a certain degree. So I feel they really nailed the process in that sense.
I mean, it's more of a spray and pray, really, right? It's like they go into most of the IP heavy university spinoffs. They're in, right? And I think that speaks for the Swiss ecosystem. I think if you would put $100,000 in every university spinoff, you probably have a really successful fund. And I think that's exactly what they're doing. Yes, there is some selection, but I think they go into the majority, which speaks for the talent potential and the IP potential that comes out of Switzerland. Plus they've been doing this for so long, right? It's like Venture Kick, it's Venture Leaders, it's the 100 Startups, the Kick Fund, like it's that whole ecosystem, which has really done so much for Switzerland. Yeah.
100%.
And yes, they come by here also once or twice a year with their Venture Leaders San Francisco tour, and they do Boston and other regions.
I think they're doing it amazingly. And I think there's a lot of, let's say non-profit investor organizations out there that are also, giving ticket sizes 50, 100K or whatever, that could really learn a little bit from them in terms of making it easier for the startups to get to that point. There's sometimes the processes that they have to get through to get this check is just, it's so absurd, honestly. Startups that are supposed to work fast and go to the market, and you're just dragging them down in sort of non-necessary bureaucracy. And that's, I think, where they're doing an amazing job with Venture Kick, because they're really not doing that. They're not burdening you with weeks and weeks of preparing documentation. It's a relatively lean, fast way of getting there, and I think we need more of that, much more of that.
And we need an expansion. We need an expansion of that. It's a little bit of a tight circle with the same people making the same decisions. So I think like we need this at scale and more players. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's also why we try to contribute with the Swisspreneur Syndicate. Now also going a bit more into the growth stage, because we did the first Series C investment there, etc. But one thing I would actually like to discuss with you is this whole spray and pray approach. Because if you look at the data, I think there is not a very clear statement. So from an ETF, a public ETF perspective, it's a very clear signal. You need to diversify geographically, industry-wise, to have a good portfolio and not touch it and just let it grow. With startup investment, that is a bit more difficult. So interesting to see from both of your perspective. Sophie, from a VC perspective, now launching a new fund where you obviously need to sort of have a story where you say, hey, you need to pay me to generate better returns than just doing spray and pray. But also from your perspective, Laurent, because I know you also angel invest yourself. Let's start with you first, Laurent. How do you look at that? Is spray and pray a valuable investment strategy for you when it comes to startup investments?
Okay, look, I'm the worst investor you've ever seen, right? So please
I don't think so. I don't think
so. Please don't follow my advice, anyone out there. So I've tried to not do a spray and pray approach. I tried to go for stuff that I really understand. But what I did is I just didn't do enough investments, right? I did like probably 10 investments. So that's not, statistically speaking, simply not enough to sort of ensure that you will have the return that you're looking for. I'm still hopeful that I will, and I still keep investing, but you need to get to around, I think it was somewhere between 15 and 20 investments that statistically speaking, you will have a relatively good chance of actually making it. So that's the first thing. I was too narrow and too slow, in my opinion. And then the second thing is, I don't know whether I don't know the exact statistics, but what I've heard repeatedly, so hopefully it's true, is that usually the first time funds are actually the ones that are performing the best. Why that is, I don't know. It's not the second, the third, or the fourth fund that you put up that is performing the best, but it's the first time.
It's because you're hungry, I can tell you.
Okay.
Well, you work the hardest, right? You work the hardest at the beginning, right? Like you have to really, like I'm seeing that now, you really have to add value to portfolio companies. You really have to like pull up your sleeves to even like get to invest, right? So I think it's that. I think it's the the smaller funds, the emerging managers, the first time funds, even like they just have to, right? So they work the hardest. And then probably once you reach like third fund, fourth fund, you get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more corporate, a little bit slower. Maybe you stop taking the risks you would have taken at the very beginning. So yeah.
You're then okay with being a good second, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're probably becoming more Swiss.
You move your fund domicile to Switzerland just to emphasize on that.
Yeah, and I mean, the question about the concentration and the spray and pray, I think you can see successful models in both, right? Like, I don't know, Y Combinator is spray and pray, SV Angels is spray and pray. They do hundreds and hundreds of investment a year, very, very successfully. And then you have funds that say, no, we're high end and focus, and we do 20 portfolio companies, but we're really high touch, and they can do that successfully too. So I don't think there is a right or wrong. It's you have to figure out who you are, and how involved you want to be. Yeah, it is a little bit.
I mean, at the end, that's just the normal distribution, I guess. You have on both sides, you have those that outperform and those that underperform in the end. I mean, that's sort of the normal distribution. I would make an argument for your case, Laurent. Maybe you just need a bit more time to let a bit more time pass between your initial investments to see how well they can perform. I would not say that you're the worst angel investor ever. Not at all, actually. I think you probably have a pretty good hit rate.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not as good as I wish it was, but I think you're right in the sense that you also learn a lot with every investment that you do, right? And I think at some point that tails off. Like the learning curve is just, I'm not saying you've learned everything, but at some point you've seen a lot and you understand what not to do anymore. You never learn everything. Obviously, you will make different mistakes, but I think between the first investment you make and probably the 20th investment that you make, there's a really steep learning curve. And I'm still on that very steep learning curve, I would say. Yeah. So some stuff that I did on the first 2-3 investments, I look back and I'm like, yeah, you should have known that better. But okay, that's probably hindsight is always.
Case. And it's nice if the return is not only, maybe if there's no monetary return, right? No financial return, at least you have a personal growth return in that sense, which is also worth something, right?
And I think it's also giving, I think as a founder, a big motivation of it is, sure, obviously you want to make money with it. I'm not an idiot, but a lot of it is also, when I started my first company, there were people, business angels, ex-startuppers, ex-founders that said, your idea might be shit, but I believe in you. And they gave me money, right? And to a certain extent, that was also what I wanted to do. I wanted to pay it forward and make sure that this ecosystem is not going to dry out. So I was perfectly happy knowing that a couple of those investments, or a majority of those investments, maybe even, will end up bringing back nothing materially, but at least we've been able to, advance the startup ecosystem for a while. And if everybody does that to an extent that is enough, I think we can actually have a good growth in the ecosystem. So 100%. I don't want to scare anyone away from being a business angel. I think everybody should try to be it. Just go in with smaller tickets in the beginning, learn how to do it, and then increase the size over time. But yeah, we need more business angels, partially, and then we need very rich people and very rich funds to actually do the follow-on rounds. That's what we're missing mainly in Switzerland, as Sophie said.
You already gave me sort of the perfect segue to talk a bit about the future. So instead of asking about what the ecosystem needs in the next year, etc., let's just think about the next 4 weeks when we meet again here. What is one thing that you would like to see happening, or that you hope for, that we can open in 4 weeks from now for our next edition? Let's start with you, Sophie, and then with Laurent.
In the next 4 weeks, I mean, what we were saying before, right? It's like we need success stories, we need role models. The more we see like a successful exit or a big round happening or somebody being really bullish, the more that actually attracts others to do that. So I hope we can celebrate, like, I don't know, either a good exit would be nice, or like another larger round. And me, of course, like I'm looking at the climate space. So it would be great to see more exciting climate stuff coming out of Switzerland. that I can invest in as a fund, and that we can also scale and really show, hey, we can actually build tech for purpose, and we can make money with this, and we can also, use the climate crisis as an opportunity to build the future infrastructure. So yeah,
beautifully
I'm hoping for
said.
that.
Well said. Laurent, what is your hope or wish or prediction even?
I want to be a little bit less Swiss than I am usually, but I'm not gonna be, American super aggressive yet. But I'm gonna say $2 billion exits of Swiss companies, 2 funding rounds that are higher than 100 millions of Swiss companies, and 2 more studies or successful tests or whatever from universities that can really, really advance an area in the world like nothing before. That's what I would really love to hear in the next 4 weeks.
Crazy. That's quite some homework to do, but I will make sure that we actually write all of that down, and the next time we meet, we're gonna go, okay, check or not check, to see what actually happened. That's beautiful.
It would be awesome if we get all of that.
Imagine. Then you're gonna invite us all for dinner, okay? That's the deal.
Deal.
Beautiful. That's all my questions for today. Sophie, Laurent, thank you so much for being with us again and for your insights. It was a pleasure having you again. And I guess we'll be back here for the April update in 4 weeks from now. Beautiful.
That's great. Thank you for having
See you
us.
then.
Great seeing you all.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you, Laurent.